Hello. Good day to everyone. Sir Howard here. This short lecture is about the two M's of happiness, money and marriage. Pag-uusapan natin, ano ba yung contribution ng money and marriage sa happiness ng tao according to psychological research. First, let's talk about happiness. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng happiness? It is a mental state of well-being characterized by positive emotions ranging from contentment to intense joy or overall good fortune. So kapag sinabi mong, alam mo, masaya ako, ibig sabihin, ganito ang estado mo. Generally, happiness we can say is a good thing. Kapag ganyan yung mararanasan mo, 'di ba? Positive emotions, kontento ka, meron kang intense joy, then ibig sabihin yan masaya ka, you would like to be like that. In fact, it is safe to say that all people wants to be happy. Totoo naman yan. Many people are willing to spend a lot of money, do everything that they could to make themselves happy. In fact, we can take this to the next level. We can also say that it is a universal desire to be happy. Lahat ng bansa, lahat ng tao sa buong mundo, kahit saang lupalop ka ng mundo naroon, we can say na isa sa mga dreams mo sa sarili mo is to make yourself happy. And you know what? This line of thinking, Abraham Maslow would agree doon sa kanyang hierarchy of needs. Kung marirealize nyo, this is a theory on happiness. Kung gusto mong maging maganda ang iyong psychological well-being, which is another term for happiness, Maslow tells us, you give this five to yourself. Bigyan mo yung sarili mo ng physiological, safety, love and belongingness, esteem, and self-actualization needs. The more you give this five to yourself, the happier you are. Kaya sinasabi ni Maslow sa kanyang hierarchy of needs theory, the hierarchy is the ultimate motivator of human beings. Lahat tayo bumabangon araw-araw para paligayahin natin yung sarili natin through those five needs that Maslow identified. Itong kaisipan ni Maslow na ito also very related to what the Bible is teaching on happiness. Paano ko nasabi? If you go back to the account of the creation story in Genesis, may kita nyo na sa Garden of Eden, meron 5 needs na yan. God designed the Garden of Eden to have all the 5 needs. Maslow said, leads to happiness. Physiological, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. Wala na lang tayong enough time to read the specific parts of Genesis where makikita natin yung 5 na yan. You can just do that on your own time. But I would say, if you read how the Garden of Eden was made by God, ano ba yung mga ginawa ng Diyos from day 1 to day 7? Kitang-kita mo na sa Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve were put, kumpleto sila sa hierarchy of needs, which tells us that God really designed life for happiness. God designed human beings to be happy. Kaya hindi talaga natin maiaalis sa ating mga sarili na hanapin yung kaligayahan because God wired us to be happy creatures. Now, let's talk about the world definition of happiness. Ito yung pinakasimple, ito yung pinakasikat na definition ng happiness that we can sense in this world. It's all about getting what you want. Sabi ng mundo, kung gusto mong maging maligaya, bigyan mo ang sarili mo ng mga bagay na gusto mo. That word want, very important. So I colored it red. And what are these things that we quote-unquote want according to the world? Ito yung short list. Money, fame, power, material things, marriage, and children. In this short talk, I am going to focus more on the two, money and marriage. Ano ba ang sinasabi ng psychological research on how money and marriage contributes to our happiness? Let's talk about money and happiness. If you're going to analyze the world data, kung ipa-plot mo raw sa isang line graph yung relationship between happiness and income quantitatively, so sukatin mo yung level of happiness ng tao, sukatin mo yung kanyang sweldo o yung kanyang income, ganyan ang itsura ng data. Again, this is world data. Thousands of people from all over parts of the world, this is the relationship between money and happiness. Ito yung tinatawag nating curvilinear relationship. Ibig sabihin, sa simula, merong direct relationship yung happiness and income. Mas dumadami yung pera mo, mas tumataas din yung iyong kaligayahan, but only to a certain extent. Only to a certain point. So, pag-usapan natin yung mga key points in this line graph. Number one, money makes you happy only to a certain point. Kung makikita nyo dito, hindi siya patuloy na tumataas. 'Di ba? Habang ikaw ay lumalaki ang sweldo mo dito, papunta ka sa kanan, merong point dito na parang nagplateau na, hindi na patuloy na tumaas yung iyong level of happiness. Yun yung ibig sabihin natin ng only to a certain point. And statisticians were able to identify kung magkano ba yung pera na yan to a certain point. Kung saan hihinto na yung pera mo sa pagpapaligaya sa'yo. That certain point is $75,000 or 313,000 pesos, Philippine pesos sa conversion natin ngayon, no? 313,000 pesos a month. So kapag ikaw ay sumisweldo ka na ng 313,000 pesos a month, generally, that is the maximum money or that is the maximum point of your money that can make you happy. Hanggang 313,000 pesos per month. Okay? Point number 2. To be more specific, yung 313,000 pesos na yan, question, why does it make you happy? According to researchers, because that amount of money, 313,000 pesos, is just enough to satisfy what you need. Let me repeat the word need. Contrary to what the world is telling us kanina, 'di ba? Sabi nga dito, money or happiness, is about getting what you want. But this data is telling us, hindi, mali 'yon. Because happiness is about getting what you need. So the reason why hanggang 313,000 pesos lang yung pera na makakapagpaligaya sa iyo, it's because that amount of money is just enough to get you what you need. Tamang-tama lang daw yan per month para ma-sustain mo yung mga bagay na kailangan mo. Number 3, getting your wants not effective in making you happy. That's according to the world data on money and happiness. So again, going back to my previous slide, medyo hindi pala accurate na sabihin ng mundo that happiness is about getting what you want. Because according to the data, getting what you want is not that effective. Hindi siya ganun ka-epektibo sa pagpapaligaya sa sarili mo. It's more on getting what you need more than getting what you want. In fact, para mas magkaroon kayo ng idea, in the next slide, kung itutuloy natin itong graph na ito, lalo pa tayong pumunta sa kanan, lalo pa nating palakihin yung sweldo mo, lalo pa nating palakihin yung income mo, what will happen to your happiness? Well, this is what will happen to your happiness. Makikita natin na yung fulfillment or yung iyong happiness bababa. Ibig sabihin niya na yung point na overconsumption ka na. Yan na yung point mo na sobrang dami mo ng pera, sobrang dami mo ng possession, it will lower down your happiness. Akala natin kapag mas marami tayong pera, ito mas tataas ng ganyan, mali. Money can only make you happy to only a certain extent. Yan na yung sinasabi dito na enough. Yan na nga yung 313,000 pesos per month. Hanggang dun lang yung kaya ng pera mo para magpaligaya sa iyo. But beyond that, more money drops your happiness. Mas malulungkot ka pa pala kapag mas dumami pa ng dumami yung pera mo beyond the money that you need to get you what you actually need. Okay, so yun yung relationship between money and fulfillment. Kaya alam nyo, naalala ko itong passage na ito from the Bible when I read this research. Sabi ni King Solomon, the sleep of a laborer is sweet when he eats little or much, but the abundance of a rich man permits him no sleep. Kapag masyado ka ng mayaman, marami ka ng possession at pera, it affects your level of fulfillment, going back here, to the point na pati yung pagtulog mo ay nababawasan. hindi ka na makatulog. Kasi lagi mong pinoproblema paano mo i-maintain yung pera, saan mo gagastusin yung pera, paano hindi mawawala yung pera, paano mas dadami yung pera mo. All those things give you additional stress. And that stress that you feel in sustaining large amounts of money, nagpapababa yan ng happiness mo, pati yung pagtulog mo ay naapektuhan. On the other hand, sinasabi ng Bible na mabuti pa raw yung laborer. Masarap ang kain. Bakit masarap ang kain? Bakit masarap ang tulog? Kasi yung pangangailangan niya, yung pera na meron siya is just enough to get him or her what he or she needs. At kapag yung pera mo, nasasatisfy mo o yung pera mo ginagamit mo para sa makuha yung mga bagay na kailangan mo, then that is a very powerful way to increase your happiness. Kaya ang sinasabi ng Bible, between laborer and being rich, mas mukhang mas nakakapagpaligaya kapag laborer ka. Kasi yung pera mo is just enough to get you what you need, which, according to research, really makes you happy. Okay, some lessons about money in relation to happiness. Number one, sana na-realize nyo that buying what you need makes you happier than buying what you want. Mali ang sinasabi ng mundo that the more you get what you want, the happier you become. Because research is telling us that we become happier when we are able to spend our money getting what we need. Kaya dapat uunahin mo bilhin yung mga bagay na kailangan mo more than sa mga bagay na gusto mo if you want yourself to be happy. Number two, the manner of spending money leads to happiness. So ito medyo iba ang statement dito. It's the manner of spending your money. How you spend your money leads to happiness. Kasi ang mundo ang sinasabi sa atin it's the amount of money that we spend or it's the amount of money that we get that makes us happy. Mali pala yun. Wala pala sa dami ng pera yung meron tayo na nakaka-contribute sa happiness natin. It's how we spend it. Kaya kung gusto mong maging masaya gamit ang iyong pera, ang problemahin mo, paano mo gagastusin yung pera more than paano dadami ang pera mo. Ang pagpaparami ng pera does not lead to happiness. That's what the research is saying. It's more on how you spend your money. Kaya nga sinabi ng isang author dito, I like this. If money does not make you happy, you are not spending it right. Ang tanong, how do you spend it right? What is the way of spending money that leads to happiness? Malaki na namang area of research yan in the psychology of money, pero patikimin ko kayo ng dalawa. According to research, how should you spend your money that will make you happy? Number one, sinabi na natin kanina, buying what you need. That's enough to make you happy. Bilhin mo muna yung mga kailangan mo, bago mo bilhin yung mga gusto mo, sasaya ka. Number two, spending money for others. In the literature, ito yung tinatawag nating pro-social spending. You spend your money for the benefit of other people. Or to make the long story short, siguro mas madaling gamitin yung salitang giving. You give your money away. That is a sure way to make yourself happy using your money, sabi ng research. Baka hindi kayo naniniwala, no? Well, in the Bible, sinasabi yan. In Acts 20:35, it says, you should remember the words of the Lord. It is more blessed to give than to receive. Alam nyo ba yung original term or original word na ginamit dito for the word blessed in the Bible? It's referring to the word happy. So the passage is literally saying that giving makes you happy than receiving. And this is supported by many empirical research in the field of psychology. Like for example, in this study, yung mga bata, kapag binibigay nila yung mga bagay na binibigay sa kanila sa laboratory, binibigay nila sa iba, binibigay nila sa isang puppet, for example, this is a very good way to make them happy. In other words, if you read this study, it tells you that children who give away the resources to others, pag binibigay ng mga batang ito yung mga bagay na meron sila sa ibang tao or or in this case, sa mga puppets, the happier these children become. Giving makes you happy. In another study, this time using adult population, ganyan din ang results ng research. The more these people spend money for other people, the happier they become. In fact, kung titignan nyo dito sa data, kapag bumibili sila ng mga bagay-bagay para sa sarili nila, hindi ganon kalakas yung epekto sa kanilang level of happiness. In other words, if you want yourself, or if you want to make yourself happy using money, using what you have, anong gagawin mo? You give it away. Again, it is more blessed. It is happier to give than to receive. It is true biblically. It is also true scientifically. Giving makes you happy, which makes you give more. This is one of the most powerful model in the psychology of money and happiness. Kapag yung pera mo, binibigay mo sa iba, you are spending it for other people, nagiging masaya ka. At yung level ng kasiyahan mo na yon, it will further motivate you to give away your money more. Okay, medyo in contradiction to what the world is teaching us, that money, that happiness is all about getting more money. Hindi. It's money is about, or happiness is about spending your money for others and making yourself happy. Let's talk about the second M, marriage and happiness. Totoo ba na yung pagpapakasal nakakapagpaligaya sa tao? Well, the answer is yes. Studies confirm that marriage makes you happy. And that idea is biblical. Genesis pa lang, sinasabi na ng Diyos yan. The Lord God said, "It is not good for a man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Kung i-analyze yung passage dito, si Adam malungkot nung mag-isa. Kaya nga sabi ng Diyos, it is not good for a man to be alone. The first problem God saw in His creation, man was alone. Man was lonely. Ibig sabihin ng alone or lonely, mababa ang happiness. So what did God do to increase that level of happiness? He made a suitable helper for him. Mababa ang happiness ng tao na si Adan. Ang ginawa ng Diyos, pataasin natin yan. Paano niya pinataas yan? Gumawa pa siya ng isang tao where Adam can connect with. In other words, relationships, connection to other people according to God makes people happy. And again, it is confirmed by research that connections will make us happy. 'Di ba? Tulad ng pagpapakasal. Ang pagpapakasal kasi ay isang klase ng connection sa ibang tao. Again, this is based on world data. If you can see on your screen, married, cohabiting, single, divorced, separated, ang pinakamataas na level of happiness ng tao is when they get married. Married people are the happiest compared to cohabiting people, single people, divorced people, and separated people. Again, this data is in line with what Genesis is saying. Exclusive connection with another human being makes you happy. Okay? Take a look at this data. Ito naman ang tawag dito ay cross-sectional data. Kahit anong age group ka pa naroon, basta kasal ka, mas masaya ka kumpara sa mga taong hindi kasal. Whether you are a 20 to 30-year-old, 40 to 50-year-old, 70 to 80-year-old, getting married or being married is one good way to be happy. How about this data? Itong data naman, pinapakita dito that idea that married leads to happiness or marriage increases your happiness, totoo yan regardless kung anong taon natin pinag-uusapan yan. Okay? Marriage increases your happiness is true during the 1970s, it's true 1980s, it's true 1990s, hanggang 2010, totoo yan. Ibig sabihin, that only tells you that idea, connection leads to happiness, it's unchanging. It's unchanging. Kahit anong point of history ka pa pumunta, the connection between relationships and happiness is very strong. Oo, kaya talagang mas tumitibay yung idea that relationships, specifically marriage, makes you happy. In fact, this one is a longitudinal data. Sinundan nila yung mga tao before they get married and after they got married in relation to the happiness that they are feeling. So as you can see here, nung single pa sila, hindi pa sila kasal, mababa ang happiness. Pero take a look at this point right here. Nung sila ay ikinasal, you see that boost in the happiness that they have. Nung kinasal sila, sobrang tumaas yung kanilang level of happiness. Hindi na sila lonely. And I want you also to notice this part. Etong level of happiness nila after they got married is higher compared to the happiness level that they experience nung sila ay hindi pa kasal. 'Di ba? Ayan o, itong part na ito, hindi na siya bumalik dito eh. Ibig sabihin lang yan, when a person gets married, yung kanyang level of happiness will be overall way higher compared to when they were just single, which is again a strong evidence that marriage leads to happiness. So, nakapatunayan natin dito, nakumpirma natin dito, that again, what the book of Genesis is saying about marriage and happiness is true. And even Abraham Maslow would agree if we jump to the field of psychology. Kasi di ba natatandaan nyo si Abraham Maslow, meron siyang sinabi about love and belonging. Isa yan sa mga needs na dapat meron ka kung gusto mong maging masaya. Your need to love someone, your need to be loved by someone, your need to be connected with someone. Your need to be connected with the relationship is a sure way to happiness. It is biblically consistent. It is scientifically consistent. Kaya napaka-powerful talaga nung truth na yan. You know, that if you want to be a happy person, you need to find someone that you should be in constant connection with para maging masaya ka. And that kind of connection, makukuha mo yan through marriage. Okay? Again, if we want to support this model by Abraham Maslow on love and belonging, being connected with others make you happy, take a look at this data. Tinanong yung mga tao about the different activities they do every day. At sa mga activities na yan, saan sila pinakamasaya, ang top 2, sex and talk. Ano ang common denominator between sex and talk? Well, these are activities where you are intimately connected with another human being. Ikumpara mo yan kung nagtatrabaho ka lang or kung nagko-commute ka lang o kung nanonood ka lang ng TV o kung nagpapahinga ka lang. Mga solitary activities kasi yan eh. Pero yung mga activities where you are engaged with another person, such as sex, having sex, and talking to that person, ito talaga yung mga bagay no, na nagpapasaya sa tao. So the research supports what Maslow is saying in his hierarchy of needs, that love and belongingness leads to happiness. Now, let me just give you some clarifications on the relationship between marriage and happiness. Number 1, happiness in marriage is not 100% constant. Ibig sabihin, hindi naman tama na sabihin mo na kapag kinasal ka, you live happily ever after. That's what the world will say. Hanap ka ng the one mo, pakasalan mo, and you will live happily ever after. The data is telling us that that boost in happiness right here, it does not last. Diba? After 1 year or after 1.5 years, yan ay babagsak. Yan ay bababa. Which means, yung salitang happily ever after, you will have same level of happiness. Constant level of happiness after you get married, it's not true. Along the way, that boost in happiness, bababa yan. So, happiness in marriage is not 100% constant. Ibig sabihin lang nito, huwag tayong mag-expect na kapag kinasal tayo, yung ating level of happiness laging ganon araw-araw. Along the way, as you stay in your married relationship, may mga pagkakataon na yung level of happiness mo, bababa rin. No? Yan ang pagiging realistic when it comes to marriage. Pero ito ang good news. Okay. How do you revive the happiness that you feel in your marriage kapag nagsisimula na siyang bumaba? Ang good news naman dito, pwede mong pag-aralan yan by learning psychological skills. It takes work. It takes work to maintain your happiness in marriage. Yan yung lesson dito. Hindi porket kinasal ka expect mo na araw-araw hanggang mamatay ka masaya ka. Hindi. It takes work to remain happy inside the married relationship. And what is that work that you need to work on para patuloy na maging masaya ang marriage mo? Dapat kang matuto ng mga key psychological skills. In fact, iyan yung sinasabi sa libro ni John Gottman, who is an expert in relationships and marriage, the 7 principles for making marriage work. Meron kang mga pag-aaralan ng mga psychological skills that will help you sustain that level of happiness that you have inside marriage. Let me just quote to you some parts of the book. According to John Gottman, real-life romance is fueled by a far more humdrum approach to staying connected. It is kept alive. Yung it dito is yung level of happiness in marriage. It's kept alive each time you let your spouse know he or she is valued during the grind of everyday life. And that in itself is a psychological skill. Yung sinasabi ni Gottman dito na letting your spouse know that he or she is valued, isang psychological skill yan na kapag practice mo, kapag in-apply mo in your married relationship, will sustain level of happiness. Another quote by Gottman: "We have found that the success or failure of a marriage depends not on whether there is conflict, but on how conflict is handled when it does occur." Another important skill in married relationship to sustain happiness, conflict resolution skills. Totoo yung sinasabi ni Gottman dito, no? Hindi hindi nakasalalay sa hindi kayo nag-aaway para maging masaya ka. No. In fact, that is unrealistic. It is unrealistic for you to expect that you will not fight in your married relationship. Kasi laging merong pag-aaway. But what makes people happy in a married relationship is it's how they handle the conflicts that makes them happy. It's not on walang away. In fact, dapat talaga laging may away. Parte ng relationship ang away. But how you handle that fight is what determines how happy you will be in your married relationship. Kaya nga, number 2, second point, in reaction, in relation to number 1, another lesson we can learn, it is not enough to get married to be happy. Good marriage makes people happy. So, wag mong asahan na porket kasal ka na, buong buhay mo masaya ka. After mong ikasal, ang next na tatrabahuhin mo is to learn those psychological skills to keep yourself happy in the married relationship. Good marriage makes people happy. It's not marriage itself. Pero yun na nga, good marriage is something that you work on. It's about compatibility. Kaya importante rin na kapag pipili ka ng taong pakakasalan mo, someone you are compatible with. Importante rin yung compatibility. Naniniwala rin naman ang mga psychologists sa compatibility, no? Na sadyang merong mga tao na mali para sa'yo when it comes to your compatibility. So you have to learn to really choose wisely who will you marry. Letter B, good marriage is about willingness to strengthen the marriage. And that takes skills. Yun ang sinasabi ko kanina. It takes skills. It takes psychological skills to maintain a good marriage. And what are some of these important skills na dapat mong pag-aralan to make your marriage good and so sustain your happiness? The Bible is very clear about that. The love chapter talks about those skills. Many people akala nila yung love chapter sa 1 Corinthians 13 is describing what love is, but you need to see 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8 as list of different skills that you need to apply in a married relationship to make it work so that both of you will be happy in your marriage. What are those skills? Not envying, being patient, being kind, not being boastful, not being proud, not dishonoring others, not self-seeking, not easily angered. Hindi mo na kinililista yung mga mali ng partner mo. That is a skill. Ha? Hindi lahat ng tao kayang gawin yan. Not delighting in evil, rejoicing in the truth. Pinoprotektahan mo yung partner mo. Pinagkakatiwalaan mo yung asawa mo. You are maintaining hope. You are persevering in the relationship. Those are the different skills na kapag in-apply mo in your marriage will make you a good marriage which will sustain your happiness. So before we close this short lecture on the 2 M's of happiness, the following are some of the lessons na pwede nating matutunan for today. Number 1, I hope you realize that happiness is within our control. Kung gusto mong maging masaya, the good news, meron kang pwedeng gawin sa sarili mo para maging masaya ka. Kasi kaya ko to sinasabi, in the history of researching about happiness, malaki ang pagkakaiba ng past version of happiness versus present version of happiness. Yung mga sinaunang tao, nung medyo nagsisimula pa lang silang pag-aralan yung happiness, they used to believe that happiness is not in our control. Let me read to you this quote coming from this book. No? Sabi, for cultures regularly subject to upheavals and twists of fate, yan yung mga sinaunang tao, from the descent of plague to the appearance of a marauding army to the onset of famine or the wrath of one's betters. Yan yung mga nararanasan ng mga tao nung sinaunang panahon. It was difficult to imagine that happiness is something that could endure, still less as something that one could control. Happiness, rather, was in the hands of the gods, meted out by fortune or forged in the crucible of fate. Actually, dito nanggaling yung mga ideas where you wait for happiness to happen. Aantayin mo yung araw na magiging masaya ka. Mali pala yung model na yun. It's not right to believe that you just wait for happiness to come. Kailan kaya ako magiging masaya? That's a very wrong question. Because you don't wait for happiness to come to you, you make yourself happy. Yan yung isang lesson na pwede nating matutunan, no? And again, modern day research in psychology, in relation to everything I've told you right now, is teaching us na meron tayo mga direct behaviors na pwedeng gawin to make ourselves happy. Yan na nga yung laman ng mga libro on the psychology of happiness, especially yan din yung laman ng Biblia. Marami mga tao ina-underestimate yung Bible in its ability to teach us how to be happy. Many people think that Bible is killjoy. Na ang Bible, kapag sinunod mo yan, lulungkot ang buhay mo. Just the opposite. In fact, I could say that the Bible is a textbook on happiness. Ang dami-dami mga biblical principles in the Bible na nagpapatunay na ang happiness is within our control. In fact, ang happiness in the Bible iniuutos Hindi siya kinoconsidered as generally just an emotion that you wait for it to feel. No. The Bible commands happiness. Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians, be joyful always. Philippians chapter 4 verse 4, rejoice in the Lord always, and again I will say rejoice. Iniuutos sa tao na maging masaya. And logically speaking, kapag iniuutos mo ang isang bagay, it means it's possible. Hindi ka naman mag-uutos ng isang bagay sa isang tao na hindi naman posible. Like for example, kung iutos ko sa'yo na maging puno ka nga, kasi hindi mo kayang maging puno kasi tao ka. So it's illogical for me na utusan ka na maging puno. Ano ang mga bagay na iuutos ko sa'yo? Mga bagay na kaya mong gawin. Kunin mo nga yung ballpen. Kumuha ka nga ng tubig. Mag-jeep ka nga papunta dito. All of those things you can do. Kaya ako iniuutos sa'yo. The Bible is the same. The fact that the Bible is teaching us to be happy, it means it's possible to be happy. And again, what are the ways to make yourself happy? Psychology and the Bible can teach you those things that you can do to make yourself happy. Number 2, another lesson that you can learn for today's talk is, totoo pala that most things that make people happy are not for sale or usually immaterial. Diba? Yan yung sinasabi ng talk natin ngayon, the 2 M's, money and marriage. Money and specifically yung money, halimbawa, it's not the money that makes you happy, it's how you spend your money that makes you happy. So how you spend your money is immaterial. Diba? Yung marriage is not a material thing. Marriage is it's a formalization of a connection, of your connection with another human being. So masasabi natin that in this talk na ipakita natin na karamihan sa mga bagay na nagpapaligaya sa atin ay hindi mga bagay. Hindi mga bagay. Most of these things are immaterial. Let me read for you these two pictures or two images na kita ko based on that idea. A bed, what money can buy? A bed but not sleep, computer but not brain, food but not appetite, finery but not beauty, a house but not a home, medicine but not a health, luxuries but not culture, amusements, luxuries but not culture, amusements but not happiness, acquaintance but not friends, obedience but not faithfulness, sex but not love. So yung mga bagay dito sa kanan, yan yung mga immaterial things. And those immaterial things are the things that will make you happy. Sleep, wisdom, appetite, beauty, home, health, so on and so forth. Yung mga bagay sa kaliwa, dito, yan yung mga bagay na material things that mostly we want. But research is saying that those things that we want does not lead to happiness. It's more on those things, the immaterial things that make us happy. Okay, yung isang picture, ang ganda rin ito. To be happier, according to research, no? Focus on time, not money. Buy time, but not too much. Buy experiences, not things. Give a little time away. Savor life's ordinary moments. Fill weeks, not hours, with variety. Spend time with loved ones. Again, immaterial things make people happy. And the good news here is, immaterial things can be bought using psychological currency. Yung mga bagay na immaterial that leads to happiness, paano natin makukuha yan? By learning psychological skills. Kumbaga yan yung presyo ng mga immaterial things na yon. Matuto ka ng mga psychological skills para makuha mo yung mga immaterial things na yon. Like what? Ano ba yung mga psychological skills na yan that can help us get those immaterial things that can really make the human psyche happy? The following are some of the skills na tinuturo in the psychology of happiness, at the same time tinuturo rin yan ng Biblia. Intimacy with God. If you have intimacy with God, studies show in the literature on spirituality, it increases happiness. If you work on your emotional intelligence, if you are selfless, you are always thinking of the welfare of others. If you do good things to other people, that's pro-social behaviors. And if you look at the world as a spiritual world more than a material world. Yan yung mga skills, no, na kapag natutunan mo at in-apply mo sa everyday life mo, will definitely make you happier. Siguro gagawan ko na lang to ng ibang videos, no, kung specifically paano ba ginagawa yung bawat isa sa lima na yan. How do you have intimacy with God? How do you work on emotional intelligence, etc. Gagawa na lang natin ng ibang videos yan on how you can apply these skills to make yourself happier. Okay, so that ends our short talk for today on the 2 M's of happiness. I hope you learned something new. If you know anyone who needs to hear this short talk, you have my permission to share this video. Thank you everyone for listening. Until next time.